Hi gang, we've had a lot of guests on The Joy of Football recently. This week it's just the two of us with our favourite segment. So we start with Over Land and Sea, and we're both going over land this week.
And we've got three of the best, and he does make them pay, I promise you. Neil in particular makes everybody pay. Don't miss it.
Letter from the Gantry is the extraordinary issues of Sheffield United versus Charlton's hits.
Yeah, that's a story of mine, and Neil's voice of passion will come hard on the heels of that, and I made hard.
Don't forget, Patreon to get more involved, subscribe to support us, and read us on substack.com where we are The Joy of Football, Martin's Letters, My Rants.
The Joy of Football podcast. With me, Neil Barnett.
And with me, Martin Tyler.
Looks rush shot in! Rooney! Aguero!
The Joy of Football.
Hello, welcome to the Joy of Football podcast, number 101 with Martin Tyler, the greatest commentator in the world, and me, Neil Barnett. We are buzzing from FA Cup quarter-final weekend. Martin commentated on Wrexham Chelsea. I was in the away end. And we start with Over Land and Sea as our first segment. And Martin, we're both doing Wrexham.
Well, you said Wrexham, and obviously I've got a few Wrexham connections, particularly having been born in Chester, big rivals of Wrexham.
They had a song, didn't they? I'm used to Tottenham and Manchester, somebody or other, and Liverpool being slagged off. They slagged off Chester,
And vice versa, of course. But I'm afraid that Chester have got not much. They haven't got much credit in the bank to put the argument forward. And Wrexham is a phenomenal story. It's a place that it's not just a football club. The whole area has been transformed by the benevolence and the sense of romance of Rob and Ryan, and great that they were both there at the game. And it looked obviously as a day when the form guide was being properly rendered as it should be by the bigger teams. But of course, after that, I'm particularly thrilled for Southampton because they've done something that resonates with me. And we'll get back to Wrexham, not getting off the subject. But they were wearing kit with no names on the back of their shirts as a testimony to the 1976, when they were in the old second division, now they're in the Championship. They won the FA Cup. And having been through the 50th anniversary last year with Fulham, where I was lucky to be invited because I was the reporter on the coach going to Wembley with Fulham, I was also a year later on the coach going to Wembley with Southampton. So I experienced all that, and I didn't know about the shirts until I started watching the game, and I thought it was just a wonderful thing to do at a time where, of course, there are so many younger people involved in running football clubs, and the sense of tradition, you need probably one or two people in the background of our kind of age to say, hang on a minute, remember this, you know. And they've obviously done that, and who knows, it's a great result at Fulham. And but Wrexham gave it their very best shot, and your experience, you didn't go over sea, you went over the Dee, maybe the River Dee, and was it your first time there?
Yeah, my first time there, and I just adored the whole exercise. I was very lucky. I phoned Mickey Thomas on the way up, and he organised me parking, so I had no problem. I parked opposite.
That's the Mickey
ground.
Thomas of the Joy of Football.
The Joy of Football is very
Yeah.
Mickey Thomas.
Yeah.
I got in. I went down to the entrance to the away end, where I got jumped upon by the documentary makers. What's the big Wrexham documentary called? The Fire on the Wall? Welcome to Wrexham.
Yes, that was your Welcome to Wrexham.
I got jumped upon by them, so I gave a big interview to them. We'll see if it goes out. And I actually said, and I meant this, that they asked me how Chelsea supporters would look upon Wrexham. And I said, well, it's very simple. I said, we had a period where Roman Abramovich bought the club, invested in the club, and clearly wanted to win things and did it for the glory of the club. And I think in this era of venture capitalists buying clubs for profit, that the Wrexham owners have bought into it for the same spirit as Roman brought into Chelsea. And I think a lot of Chelsea supporters will look upon the Hollywood duo not as a Hollywood duo, but as two guys wanting to challenge in order to bring glory to Wrexham Football Club. And I think that is the case.
We've got a new three R's then, haven't we? Ryan, Rob and Roman. Football, 3 R's, the mathematics of football, and contrary to the mathematics of football that you're talking about.
And I thought they played okay, Wrexham, but they put out essentially their first team with a couple of changes. Chelsea put out essentially their shadow team and weren't as good.
Well, George Dobson, who was sent off, and we come on to not only your first visit there, but VAR's first visit to the Racecourse Ground and the implications that had in the game. But George Dobson had an operation on his wrist with a screw put in to get the bones sorted out, and played very competitively, as it turned out, just a little bit too competitive. So they went with the best available team, and no question about that. And of course, twice led, and very nearly, VAR. If you look at it coldly, there was never a question of Sam Smith being offside in terms of the assistant referee. So VAR, though, was used to prove that he was onside. But had there been no VAR, the goal would have stood. And George Dobson got
the third goal that was ruled out would have stood. The 3-2 goal to Wrexham you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about the first goal of the game.
Oh, right. Yeah.
First goal of the game, Sam Smith's goal, where he was right. I mean, it was almost in his own half, but he wasn't quite.
No.
And it was a marginal call, but the assistant called it as a goal. So if no VAR, fourth round, not the fifth round, then that goal stood properly. It did stand. Yeah. And then Dobson got sent off for a yellow card offence that was then looked at by VAR. So VAR intervened there against Wrexham. And then the goal that would have been the equaliser at 3-3 was given as a goal and then ruled out. And these are decisions that, if Wrexham get in the Premier League, they're going to have to live with those sort of things. But it just took a little bit off the edge of it. But I do think Chelsea, in the end, the touch of class from João Pedro, who's absolutely purring as a footballer at the moment. So it was great to commentate on, and I'm sure it was great for you as a Chelsea fan.
I'd say two other things. I stayed up there overnight. I didn't stay in Wrexham. There are two ways to drive up. You can go up sort of the Welsh border. You can, if you're going from London like I was, you can cut across to the Welsh border north of Birmingham, north of Wolverhampton, and go up through Oswestry. Or you can go up through Cheshire and then cut across from there. And I got myself a nice bread and breakfast in Nantwich in Cheshire, and then cut across 20 miles only to get to Wrexham's ground. But it was 20 miles of rural, single lane each way roads with fields galore around you. And you wouldn't believe you were going to a big football match. And in fact, the bed and breakfast I stayed in, a Wrexham player used to stay in that when he was on loan from Crewe. So he would have done it every day to training. And it was just, it was glorious. It was absolutely wonderful. And then you get there, you get in the ground, and for the 10 minutes before kickoff, the PA system either wasn't being used or was so quiet nobody could hear it. And the atmosphere was absolutely electric, with both sets of fans going, as I call it, hammer and tonsils against each other. The chanting was sky high, and you looked around and everybody was having a brilliant time. And none of this crap, huge music fascism that's forced on football supporters now to listen to leading up to kickoff. None of this commercial marketing fascism. It was just the democracy of supporters singing against each other, and everyone was having a wonderful time. It was absolutely brilliant. And when the teams came out, the whole ground was shaking, not with some ghastly piece of 1970s or 80s music, sometimes good music, Jeff Beck, but it was brilliant. It was brilliant, and both supporters were having an absolutely brilliant time. And then it was a great cup tie, although the football was pretty garbage most of the time. But that is how the FA Cup works.
The football wasn't garbage. Phil Parkinson put on a terrific display of how to play without the ball.
Yeah, I agree.
For the first 20 minutes, and then they got the goal on the breakaway. Callum Doyle played a wonderful pass for Sam Smith to score. And then, of course, contributed the second goal with a flick worthy of anybody that you could ever mention at the top end, Ronaldo, Messi or anything. That was a brilliant flick. I don't agree with you about that. I think you're used to maybe
Well, I was looking at it from a point of view of a team that should be...
Well, I should also say, Neil is also looking point of view with the public address, where he would be doing his stuff right up to the teams coming out and doing it brilliantly in the days when you were man on the mic with Chelsea and not having any music interrupting your finest pieces of work.
But never ever spoke after the teams came out.
No, that's exactly the right thing, and that's why you were a master of your craft.
And that's why I was sacked. Well, I refused.
Yeah,
I've
just got a Wrexham tale to tell you. Really, two things. I was sent as a reporter to England, Wales v England at Wrexham when Ron Greenwood was manager, early 80s, and England lost 4-1. My only job on the day was to interview the England manager, come hell or high water, and it was hell for Ron, and he could be very clipped, and it was a very difficult interview to do. And Wales played brilliantly and thoroughly deserved to win the game. So that's a Wrexham memory. A second one was in 1981. It might have been the same year, actually. I'd met a Georgian player, Soviet Union player, David Kipiani. He'd helped me. He was playing for Dinamo Tbilisi in a cup final a couple of weeks before. It was the Carl Zeiss Jena versus Dinamo Tbilisi, and I was thrilled to get the gig, but a lot of the more experienced commentators were very happy to shove me in the direction of playing in Dusseldorf. And I just simply went to the training of Tbilisi and said, does anybody speak English? And he did. And we got talking, and he helped me a lot with that particular game. And then he said, oh, by the way, I'm coming to United Kingdom. You probably know the difference in Wales and England, but we're playing Soviet Union, playing Wales at Wrexham. So I said, I'll come see you. And I went to the game specifically. I went to the team hotel, saw him. He was charming. He was a very gracious person as well as a fine footballer. And then I turned up at the ground to get my ticket, and I saw the Granada television commentator, the regional ITV commentary then, based in Manchester, very high-profile regional part of ITV football. And Gerald Stinson had been their commentator for all the time that I knew anyway, quite a long time. And he came up to me, just literally queuing. He'd got his accreditation. I was getting whatever I got, a match ticket. And he said, have you heard my news? And I went, no, I don't. He said, oh, I'm leaving Granada. And that was a plum job in ITV regional football. So I didn't really concentrate on watching the game because I just wondered whether I was in with a chance, you know. I remember driving back. It was 0-0 the game. I'm pretty sure it was 0-0. Driving back and thinking, oh, well, something's going to happen. I was working for Yorkshire Television, as you'll find out a bit later on with the letter in this podcast. And then the very next morning, I got a call from the boss at Granada, Paul Doherty. Said, I don't know whether you know, but Gerald's leaving. How are you fixed? And I was actually out of contract at Yorkshire Television. I think it would have been renewed, but literally the season had just finished a couple of weeks. Wasn't their fault, but I'm afraid with my naked ambition to move myself towards the Manchester clubs and the Liverpool clubs away from a Yorkshire region that only had Leeds in the top flight, I was out the door. And I'm not sure, even looking back now, it was definitely the right decision for a career. Whether it was the right decision after being nurtured so beautifully at Yorkshire Television, so caringly, it was a hard decision to make in the emotional sense, but professionally I said yes straight away. So that was Wrexham. That all happened at Wrexham.
I just want to say one more thing about Wrexham. When the teams came out, in the stand opposite where the teams came out, where the managers' dugouts were in front of, they had a whole load of cards up, which didn't look too impressive at the beginning, but when they were unveiled properly, showed two words: Joey Jones, who of course was an absolute Wrexham legend and was quite a bit of a Chelsea legend as well, and who died earlier this year, and who on retiring
last
from
year,
playing,
he died last.
was it last year?
July.
Yeah, it was. Who on retiring from playing for Wrexham, Liverpool, Wrexham, Chelsea, Wrexham, became their youth team coach. I was their youth team coach for years, and just adored living and being a son of Wrexham. And his name came up, and the Wrexham supporters started chanting his name, and it was a chant that Chelsea never had for him. But the Chelsea supporters joined in. Brilliant.
I did see, Joe. The other Wrexham story was that I was going to say in that dugout, but of course the dugouts have changed since I was there with Woking in 2021-22 season, I think. And but Joey was there. It was an absolute joy to see him. Mickey Thomas was there. It was a joy to see him. And one of the great Wrexham goal scorers of bygone times, Dixie McNeil, was also there as well. Yeah. But we lost 1-0 and we should have had a penalty with 3 minutes to go. And so it's not all sweetness and light for me. Well, remembering Wrexham.
I used to do a series called Legends on Chelsea TV, half-hour interview, or sometimes an hour, with a legend. And I went to Wrexham's training ground. So I'd never been to their ground, but I'd been to their training ground, and I did Joey. And we started off, it was glorious blue sky. We did 10, 15 minutes, and then and we had to move indoors when the rains came down. But we had a laugh.
I did mention when I was talking about the fact I am 1/8 Welsh, that my great-grandmother her surname was Thomas. My mother's name was Jones.
So you must be. Yeah. Eddie Nisveski was there as well. Another one who played for both clubs and who.
It was special.
Managerial coaching career.
And it was last line I said in my commentary was, I said, "You haven't heard the last of Wrexham." And goodness me, plenty of people around the world that have heard of them now. But there's more to come. I do believe there's more to come.
Yeah, I mean, their capacity at the moment is 10,500, but that one end of the ground is closed and being developed.
Yeah, they're totally redeveloping it. It feels like a club that's going places. Well, it's gone places. It's gone places, yeah.
But it feels like it's going more places.
Yeah. No, it's a wonderful story.
I never got into the town. Should I have done?
No, I don't. All I can tell you is the railway station is right by it, and I have been to Wrexham by train. It's a nice way. You talk about driving through the countryside, the train goes through there as well. So it's a lovely, but has been a downtrodden part of the United Kingdom, and now it's getting a real upswing. And if it's come from Hollywood, why not? Why not?
Over land and sea. We move on to, and we've got coming up, Letter from the Gantry and Voice of Passion. So we're doing all the faves this podcast. We move on to 3 of the best.
And he makes them pay.
3 of the best. He's made them pay. And that completes a wonderful hat-trick.
3 of the best. Old player, young player, player. And if you haven't subscribed to The Joy of Football yet, do it now. Thank you. Right. Old player.
Well, this was one that suddenly came to me. I should have known more about it earlier, but I've gone for the Lincoln City manager, Michael Skubala, who probably is better known in the wider areas for having a spell as the interim manager at Leeds United, where he was a coach and lower down the scale. And I don't know much about his playing background. I don't think there is too much to it. I might be doing him a disservice, but he has transformed Lincoln City. And this is on the back of them winning at Cardiff, who they leapfrogged to go top of the League One with an 18th game unbeaten. They've not lost since the middle of November. It's an extraordinary feat. They've not been in the second tier of English football since 1961. So what they are tilting at, I mean, Wrexham, of course, have never been in the top flight of British football, they would say, from their point of view, of course, being in Wales, but of the English football system. So these things are happening when everything's supposed to be high tech and all. You eliminate all the dangerous negotiables that could go against you, and just as Port Vale have recently proved as well. You know, there is still scope for going against the odds, winning against the odds. Now, whether they'll get up, they've still got them. They're in the run-in really now, and they're in the running as well, of course. But another part of this story that I have to tell you, which really resonates with me, they have a club commentator for their television website. They cover all the games in full. And the club commentator is my old friend John Helm, who is 83 years old, so he's older than me. He's a great example for me. And he's been doing everything. When I left Yorkshire Television, the story I've just told, the only thing I felt good about is that I recommended John, who's a proper Yorkshireman, for the role. And John stayed there, and he's probably still used if they need somebody. He's probably still used. So, but he's still training. He works out in the gym. He's been doing a lot of water polo in recent years. He took that on. He's just got the energy and the enthusiasm. He's the nicest man in the world. And Lincoln are very lucky to have him, and they know it. That's the nicest thing about it. They really know it. He did a couple of pre-season friendlies a while back, and then they said, would you like to do some more games? And how many, said John. Well, a whole season. And he went, wow. So it's not, as you get older, it's not always easy to find work, but when you're as good and talented and as a wonderful person as John Helm is, you know, I'm sure other people will be looking at his body of work even for this season to show that he can still go and still go strong. So I'll be looking out for Lincoln. I'll be looking out for Helmy, that's for sure.
I've been to both Lincoln and Cardiff this season.
Yeah, of course.
And I want to tell you about Lincoln. I fell in love with Lincoln. I mean, it's a beautiful city, wonderful cathedral, and lovely old streets. The first time I ever went to Lincoln, I should have done Frank Sinclair as my old player. The first time I ever went to Lincoln, Frank Sinclair was finishing his career there. And I went to do a Legends interview for Chelsea TV with him. And so we did that, and we were sitting around after having a drink and just a chat. I'd known him for years and years, Frank. And I said to him, because he liked a night out, Frank, I said, what's Lincoln like at night time? Have you had any nights out here? And he said, no, I don't really go out here. He said, the trouble is, it's a university town. You go into the pubs and everyone's talking. Which, if you knew Frank Sinclair, is just spot on.
Yeah.
He wants a bit of action, not talking. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you can still use him as your old player, but you're going to tell us who your old player is.
But before that, I just want to tell my Lincoln story for this season. They kicked off. I was behind the goal. They were kicking the other way in the Carabao Cup third round against Chelsea. They kicked off, passed the ball back, tonked it long. About 2 or 3 people went in for a header. It got cleared, and it went out level with the front of the centre circle in Chelsea's half. And Tom Hamer, who's a right back, but on the day was playing on the left wing, which I'm still trying to work out as the team's kicked off.
I'll ring John and ask him why. He'll know.
I'll tell you why, because I had to get him in the team one way or another.
To throw the ball.
He picked the ball up, and from, what's the centre circle, 15 yards? The front point of the centre circle, probably about 15 yards. From 15 yards inside Chelsea's half, he hurled to this ball into the penalty area. It was the most magnificent throw I've seen since Rory Delap stopped playing. It was unbelievable.
If you want to know the dimensions of the centre circle, you should ask your Chelsea players, because they've been pitching camp in the centre circle, and they did before the game at Wrexham, but not at half-time, I noticed, not at half-time.
Yeah.
Which they did at Aston Villa.
It annoyed you?
No, it
annoys me.
It annoyed me as a football person. As a coach, I would be going, to our lads, there's no way we're not getting in the centre circle before then. We go out for the second half, we'll go out a minute early and we'll get in the centre circle. So in a way, they would narc the opposition. I'm not sure it's designed to do that. I think it probably is.
I think it's a sports psychologist who doesn't know the first flipping thing about football or anything.
I think it comes from another sport. It seems to me that it comes from another sport.
Absolutely.
Whether the end of it, I'm doing a Chelsea game again soon, so you'll be there, but I'll report back to the podcast to what I've seen. This seemed unnecessary.
They did it at Arsenal. And I said to the person I was next to, I said, they'd be better off doing that in front of the Chelsea supporters and getting a bit of buzz going between the supporters and the team, not just getting a bit of anger going between them and the opposition.
One thing I did think when I saw it in the Villa game was that they were delaying a restart, which you all get, so booked the lot of. But the restart of the second, it's not a restart, it's a start.
Yeah.
So the referee is not empowered to go and say, bump, bump, bump,
but the FIFA rules say 15 minutes.
15 minutes?
For half-time.
No, what they were risking infringing, and I have no idea whether this actually happened, if you delay the start of the first half or the second half, one team is seen to be responsible for that. There are fines. So if it's some coach's idea, if Chelsea were to be fined, I hope he'd pay the fine.
My old player is Ryan Giggs. Now, there's a theme that I'm developing here. Everyone who's old enough to remember will understand the role that Alex Ferguson played in the rise of Ryan Giggs psychologically, because he got into the United side over Lee Sharp. He was about 17, wasn't he, when he got in 17, 18?
I saw his debut against Everton. He came on as a first-half substitute in the days where there weren't many substitutes. And it was one of those, like Wayne Rooney, Clive Tilsley's great commentary on it, remember the name. But we knew about Ryan, but not as Ryan Giggs. He'd obviously been playing schoolboy football very successfully as Ryan Wilson. And then obviously a family breakup and the name was changed. But carry on anyway.
And in those days, the days before social media, the days when the only media you had to be concerned about was the television and the newspapers, Fergie didn't want him talking to them. I think there were two reasons for that. One was because of the danger of him being misrepresented, not so much by television, but it would be more like by tabloid newspapers, not by broadsheets so much. And the other reason was to stop him getting big-headed. Now, in terms of his career, that worked really well. And Ryan Giggs, I don't think, could have had a better career. And there was a lot of publicity about how Alex Ferguson wouldn't let him talk to the media. But in retrospect, it just seemed the right thing. And of course, not long after that, 3 years after, maybe, when David Beckham broke through on the other flank, 2 years even, 3 years after, the whole media circus was beginning. And of course, in the end, there was a fallout between Ferguson and Beckham in 2003, and Beckham left the club. That should never have happened. But the media circus was already beginning. And Ryan Giggs is really the last player of that nature who a manager was able to control in order to get the best out of him in football terms. And now it's all changed. But I'll come on to that next. I understand that there are things that followed that give a different picture of his career, but I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the football. And in the football, he got everything out of his career that he possibly could. And the beginning of it protected him from what otherwise might have happened. David Beckham, he won the Champions League with Manchester United. But after he left, did he really get the best out of his football career that he possibly could? Question marks. Interesting. But I'll come back to why I want to talk about that in a moment. Let's go on to young player.
Yes, well, I'm afraid I'm going down a very populist route here. Max Dowman of Arsenal made his debut when he was 15 and re-emerged as a 16-year-old in their FA Cup tie at Mansfield. in a very changed Mikel Arteta approach to an awkward game against the League One team, a League One team managed by the son of the great Brian Clough, Nigel Clough, who's has held his own as a football manager and is making his own reputation as a really good, solid operative. And he's learnt a lot, obviously, from his dad, but he's got his own personality on the game. So it's a tough game for Arsenal, as it turned out to be. And some of the players, I think, found that the pitch did look a bit, shall we say, 20th century, really. And it was hard work. It was hard work, but Dowman made it look easy. He's got such a lovely touch, movement. For older Arsenal fans, Liam Brady, smacked of a young Liam Brady, who I first saw at Stamford Bridge playing in a youth game against Chelsea in the FA Youth Cup, when he was probably maybe a few months older than what Max is now. So it's partly a gift, clearly, but there are a lot of gifted young ball-playing schoolboys who perhaps think that football is about other things than what it actually is about, the business of winning matches. But he's fitted in so well, and it was just a joy to watch him play. As I say, I mean, I played three at the back to start with Mikel Arteta, which he hadn't. I can't remember the last time he did it, and certainly that throws everything else into a slightly different way of working. But you wouldn't know it with Dowman's performance, and he's just got something extremely special. And credit to Arsenal for recognising it early and allowing it to flourish, not stifling it. And Nwaneri's gone out on loan now, hasn't he? So I'm not saying they've stifled it, but they can't find room for it. And can they find room for Max Dowman to develop? He's of an age now where the next year or two he needs to be playing, but certainly not playing every week in the hurly-burly of the Premier League, maybe. And you can't plot a pathway for just one player. But there is a responsibility to look after that player and obviously to get the very best. That's what real coaching is about. If the coaches at Arsenal believe that he should be in the team, then they've got to persuade the manager to keep picking him. And maybe that'll happen. Maybe that will happen.
And with players like that, if they're that good, they probably don't go out on loan for a season, but for half a season. Because once they've got that 20 games under their belt, they probably reached the level that it takes to be a regular, not necessarily in the team, but in the squad, and getting a regular game.
And of course, there's so many games for the clubs like Arsenal, so there is opportunity. But as I say, Nwaneri's gone have a few months elsewhere, and that's obviously a club decision to try and push him forward a little bit more than maybe they feel he would be if he stayed for the rest of the season here in London with not getting so much football. So fascinating to see. I mean, the journeys are so amazing. I think that's what keeps me involved in commentating on football, but the people who play football, and how their pathway. Everybody's got a story, really.
My young player is anonymous. I'm not going to reveal who it is, and I'll come on to that in a moment. But I want to just go back to pre-social media and in the 1990s.
Can we all do that, please?
in the 1990s, when I was editing all Chelsea's publications, a coach introduced me to a new youth team player who was about 16 years old, and said, "This is the new Pele. Pele, this is Spy. Spy, this is Pele." And we shook hands. And I went along with the Pele thing. I said, "Well, Pele," I said, "I'm really looking forward to interviewing you. And when you've played between 10 and 20 first team games, I will be interviewing you." And that's how it was. That's how it was. You didn't get publicity until you'd made a name for yourself. Maybe you got one article about the school you went to, the scout who discovered you, the coaches who had influenced you, and what have you. But that would be it, and you wouldn't get any more publicity. Fast forward to the 2010s, and a very skillful player made his debut and did pretty well. And he, the following week, arrived at training with an entourage of about 3 people with camera kit to take some movie takes. And at the end of training, he asked a young goalkeeper to do some extra training with him because he wanted to practice his free kicks. And his mates set up the camera behind the goal, and he put the ball down, and then he asked the goalkeeper to let the ball go in the goal, not to save it. He was an extra in a film for his social media, having made his debut, that would be a series of goals from free kicks. It wasn't training at all. It was self-absorption. Great American term, that, self-absorption. And I believe now there's a lot of debate across the globe, especially, well, the whole globe, about social media. You know, is it right that kids in school should have smartphones? If you're being invaded by Trump, do you turn off the internet? If you've got people demanding freedoms in Iran, do you turn off the internet? There's so much discussion going on, but everyone wants to be or can become an influencer. Everyone can big themselves up with no talent at all, like us. And this kid, his career didn't go anywhere, I'm afraid, which was a shame. He was a real talent, but how can you do that? How can you do that? And what do the people who are achieving things? And in the 20 teenies, there were Chelsea players who just looked at him and thought, "You got no chance." But that I just want everybody to consider what the pressures are. If you've got a talent and you've got an agent saying do this, do that, and you've got parents saying do this, do that, and you can maximize your financial potential now rather than concentrate on your football. I am told that Declan Rice turns down all approaches for commercial ventures so that he can concentrate on his football. And the only things he does for Arsenal as part of his job, because he wants to make the most out of his football. And I can't think of another player in the Premier League at the moment, and I mean this in a way of the greatest possible compliment, who has gone so far, so quickly on the talent that he has. He has done it by attitude. He has done it by focus. He has done it by making the absolute most of the ability that
he has done it because he was rejected by Chelsea.
That's probably got a lot to do with it.
It has got a lot
well.
to do with it.
Yeah. To prove them wrong.
A motivating thing to prove them wrong.
Yeah. But he is somebody who has understood how to get the best out of himself. And I think in the age of social media, that is a big achievement on its own. I think it is very, very hard because the pressures to make the most of yourself today, financially and culturally and publicly, are massive.
I think it's very hard for us to point the right way and the wrong way because everyone has their own story, their own journey.
Yes.
They find themselves in that position for all sorts of different routes. They have, and many of them have very good people around them. Some don't, and there are plenty of opportunists trying to jump on that particularly gravy train. And it's always a challenge, but it always has been the way with schoolboy play. I did England schoolboy games quite a lot in the 70s and early 80s, and the amount of money that was being thrown at the 15-year-olds, because that was the big flagship team.
The agents
England
are coming in now. They want these players at that age. I got so many offers down the years from agents to procure players for them, and terrible. So that's my tale. Your player?
My player is Crysencio Summerville of West Ham United, who I saw win the game, a very important game at Fulham when I was commentating recently, with a great piece of what his quality is. Speed, able to move the ball quickly, move himself quickly, and see an opening. incredibly, Neil, he scored 7 goals this season, all since the turn of the year. He is the 2026 footballer of the year, without a shadow of a doubt over those periods. And of course, in games that mean so much.
It's João Pedro, but he's number 2.
It's he's trying to lift the team up the league, get them out of the. In fact, the goal for a moment seemed to be getting them out of the bottom 3, but then Nottingham Forest came back and equalised at Manchester City.
He struggled to get into the team to begin with. What went wrong there?
He's been injured a lot, and his time at Leeds, it was the same thing. He came to Leeds as a 19-year-old. He's from the Netherlands and hasn't yet won a full cap for them. I would guess Ronald Koeman will be weighing up the squad. I'd be surprised if he's not in the squad for the warm-up matches that the Dutch have got to play. But he's suddenly found not just that. I mean, he scored. You were there. He scored a goal at Chelsea that was just astonishing with a volley when the ball came across. It was a wonderful goal.
I saw him play in the FA Cup a couple of years ago at Chelsea, and he was impressive.
For Leeds, that was for Leeds. Yeah.
He was impressive.
So it hasn't quite happened for him until now, but boy, is it happening for him now. So long may it continue, because he's an eye-catching player. And to have that kind of end product to the other qualities that he's got is something he hadn't really found before, I don't think. Of course, he wasn't always in the Premier League when he was at Leeds, but now, and he'd be hoping he's in the Premier League next season with West Ham. But if they are going to stay up, he's going to play a big part in it. He's kept them in contention already with what he's done. So I'm speaking before they play Brentford in the Cup, by the way, so that 7 might become something more when that game's finished. But no, he's definitely my player of this podcast, that's for sure.
Well, I think that Arsenal are the new Leeds, in that everybody hates them. And my player is Gabriel. Can we say Gabriel Magalhaes?
Magalhaes. Yeah, Magalhaes. Like Guimaraes with Bruno.
Yeah. I think if Arsenal win the Premier League, my Premier League Player of the Year would be between him, David Raya, and Declan Rice. And I think I'd give it to Gabriel. I've said this a lot. I first saw Gabriel play for Lille in the Champions League, and he was awful. Everyone was talking about him. And Tammy Abraham gave him a right old run around, and I wasn't impressed by him at all. And his first year at Arsenal, he wasn't that good. But there are 3 things that I really love about Gabriel. One is that there's a lot of criticism, rightly, at Arsenal at the moment about their match management, their time wasting, and their general attitudes, which are a little bit close to the edge. I don't think Gabriel's a part of that. If you watch, all the others do it, William Saliba, all the others do it, but he doesn't. He just gets on with it, wins his headers, wins his duels, and he's actually got a very jovial, if that's the right word, approach to the game. And he's always, he's not in people's faces in the way that the others are. He's not holding, because he doesn't have to. Everyone has to hold him.
Erling Haaland's face, did he not get into?
Oh, he might have got into it. I excuse that. But
I know what you mean. There is a gentlemanly side to a tough competitor.
Yeah. The second thing is, I just think he's become an outstanding player. And he didn't impress me when I saw him. He struggled in his first season, and he has become the outstanding central defender in the Premier League. And the third thing is, he just understands the game. He wins his duels, gets forward, and he understands the game. And I think it's been an absolute revelation. And I just hope in all the kind of downside to some of Arsenal's goings on. And I don't know a Chelsea supporter who wants Arsenal to win the league. They all want Manchester City to win it. I want Arsenal to win it. I'm just.
Can you just say that again?
Yeah, I do. Out of the two, I want
say it
Arsenal
again.
to win it.
Say it again.
Because I don't want Manchester City to win
say it again.
again.
Say it again.
I want Arsenal to win it.
Well said.
And
Because I didn't think you would ever say it twice.
No.
And once was a surprise.
Yeah. I don't want Manchester City to win it again. And I just, after years of a government-owned club, a government that I find unacceptable in its politics, sports washing, however much it hurts me, I just think it's the venture capitalists' turn. I don't want them to win it either, obviously. I want Wrexham to win it, but that's not possible. So
it could have been possible for them winning the FA Cup, at least getting to the quarterfinals.
Yeah. Sorry, Wrexham.
You spoilt that dream, didn't you?
But Gabriel, I think, is with Declan Rice. I think Gabriel is the positive face of Arsenal, and well done to him.
Chelsea have lost 3 games under Liam Rosenior, all to Arsenal. Did Gabriel play in all 3 of them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
We get our Arsenal-loving producer to check that out for us.
No, look at him. First time I've seen him with a smile that broad.
He's still worried, by the way.
No, he's become an outstanding personality as well as an outstanding player.
Not quite the angel Gabriel, but but a good man and a good player. And thank you, Neil, for that.
That is 3 of the best. Now, don't forget that The Joy of Football is also readable on Substack.com, in which the outstanding Martin Tyler's letters from the Gantry can be caught up with, as well as my rants, specially written. This is this week's Martin Tyler's letter from the Gantry.
Letter from the Gantry.
Thank you, Neil. We are just a few days away from the 45th anniversary of one of the most unusual set of circumstances I've ever been involved in covering football on television. Saturday, March the 14th, 1981, was an extremely wet day at the end of a very damp week in the Yorkshire television region. On the previous day, after all it was Friday the 13th, I was in a state of flux. I was supposed to be covering Rotherham United against Burnley, but it fell victim to the weather. Alternatives at nearby Barnsley and Huddersfield were explored, but also in doubt and indeed in the end postponed. However, my boss Jeff Hall took a real pride in finding a game to televise every weekend, and if one fell by the wayside, he would immediately aim elsewhere. The crew and of course the commentator were primed to travel, sometimes long distances, at very short notice. Jeff was a true Yorkshireman. He could be very blunt, but in my 5 seasons working for him, he showed a lot of care towards this enthusiastic but then very inexperienced commentator. We shared that will to beat the elements, which was often a challenge in the area, with very little pitch protection in those days. On that Saturday morning came the news from South Yorkshire. Bramall Lane, muddy though it was, had been past fit for play. Sheffield United would take on Charlton Athletic in Football League's Division 3, the equivalent back then of our League 1 today. Jeff was delighted, so was I. Only 2 years earlier, he'd dispatched presenter Fred Dinage and myself up the A1 from Leeds to Newcastle through snow and ice, the bleakest of midwinters, for an FA Cup tie against Wolves at St James's Park, one of the few games played in the country that day. Like the legendary Canadian Mountie got his man, Jeff almost always got his match. But 45 years ago, there was a major snag. Nothing to do with the adverse weather. Sponsorship had only recently been allowed on the front of shirts, but it was to be 2 more years before those kits could be worn in televised games, and even then for a while with smaller font sizes for the shirt advertising in the on-screen matches. Not expecting to be on television, Charlton had travelled with kit with their slogan on their shirts. The game could go ahead, but Yorkshire television could not show it. Ever resourceful, Jeff came up with what seemed to everyone else an impossible and even ridiculous solution. "What about Sheffield Wednesday?" he said. "They might help us." Jeff had great connections with all the clubs in the area. "No way," I said. "Can we get Charlton to play in Wednesday's blue and white? United fans will give them a terrible time." But Wednesday had an away strip, of yellow shirts with blue shorts, typical of many clubs at the time, and with no slogan. The SOS went out across Sheffield, and the neighbours were very neighbourly. I have no recollection now of how the kit travelled from Hillsborough to Bramall Lane. I might have even been involved myself, but it did. Charlton, who would now get a fee for being part of a TV broadcast, played ball and played the game. Nowadays, the story would have come out instantly, but we kept quiet, and to my knowledge, no one outside our inner circle spotted it. That owl emblem was on the Wednesday tops, but soon there was so much mud on the kit that it was far from obvious. I can't recall Charlton as a club or any visiting player taken to task because the Unitedites saw a Sheffield Wednesday crest. The story didn't escape Charlton's eminent club historian, the late Colin Cameron. In his superb publication, Home and Away with Charlton Athletic, he wrote, "The pitch resembled a mud bath after continuous rain. Mike Bailey, the Charlton manager, was angry that the match had not been called off. ITV switched the cameras to Bramall Lane. Charlton only had shirts with the sponsor's name on, so the TV company delivered a set of Sheffield Wednesday shirts for the addicts to play in. As for the game, Sheffield United scored early through a much-travelled striker of the era, Bob Hatton, and half an hour later, another Hatton shot hit the bar, and left-back Paul Garner was first to the loose ball. 2-0 to the Blades. Paul Walsh, then only 18 and on the verge of a career which would include spells with Liverpool, Spurs, Manchester City and England, got Charlton back into the contest. Don Givens, with over 50 Republic of Ireland caps to his name, restored Sheffield United's 2-goal lead. They then conceded a penalty converted by Charlton's legendary goalscorer, Derek Hales, but United hung on for the points. Now, despite Sheffield United being managed then by England World Cup winner Martin Peters, the season would end dismally at Bramall Lane. The Blades posted only one more victory and were relegated to the fourth tier of English football for the first and still the only time. And despite that defeat, in the mud, Charlton in contrast finished third and won promotion to the second division. And at the end of that season, I would move on too, to Granada Television, but ever grateful to a generous and persistent boss, Jeff Hall, the resourceful match director who searched high and low in all conditions to get football on the Yorkshire television screens.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Amazing. It's just amazing thinking back on it.
I forgot Charlton were called the Addicts.
Yeah,
because
the Athletic is sort of...
They're referred to as the Robins now. They're in red.
Yeah, there's that as well.
Yeah.
But it was... Do you know what the other thing about that season? It was the last season of 2 points for a win. They changed that in the summer. So I was trying to do the mathematics. And on the last day of the season, either Sheffield United or Walsall would go down. And Sheffield United only needed a draw. Home to Walsall, and struggling. It was a real, winner takes all and survives in the third tier. And to equalise in the last minute, they got a penalty and missed it. Were relegated, but they came back, I think, as champions the next season. But it was just those big names. Another thing, looking back at it, I remember the story for the shirts really. But Martin Peters, Don Givens was a very well-known player of his time. Paul Walsh, who went on into the Premier League era play. So, and was a Charlton product. Went to Luton first, if you remember, and then Liverpool. I did a game where Luton, I think, lost 6-0 at Anfield. And Liverpool were known at the time under Bob Paisley, and I'm sure previously Bill Shankly the same. If you played well against Liverpool, they took notice of you. They were such a good team. And they lost 6-0, but Walshy hit the bar twice, I think, never stopped running, and was actually outstanding in a team that lost 6-0, which was a very difficult thing to do. And they never forgot that. And I don't know what the timescale was, but that was his move. And
Don Givens was a runner-up in the first division with Queen's Park Rangers.
He was part of that very, very good QPR team. Jerry Francis, Terry Venables, and Stan Bowles. And Stan Bowles played up front with Don, and Don did a lot of the graph for Stan Bowles to embroider his particular individual skills on the game. It's a wonderful team. Dave Thomas, as well, the winger. So Phil Parks in goal. It was a really, really good team. One of the best teams not to win the league, really. Yeah.
Frank McClintock and Dave Webb centre back.
Yeah. Terry Mancini, was that, maybe he'd gone by that? Maybe he was there as well. He was the first footballer I ever interviewed, but for television, by the way. Terry Mancini, or rather he interviewed me.
He's brilliant.
He's great. He lives not that far away from here, so
He
we
used to
still
have a pub
catch
in
up.
the Fulham Palace Road.
He did. The Mancinis, they were very into boxing, weren't they, as well?
Big time.
Big boxing thing,
Brilliant.
That's
Brilliant.
50 years ago. My goodness me, 45 was bad enough. But yeah, the anniversary's coming up, and
You couldn't do that now. Use somebody else's shirts with sponsor, because they'd all have sponsorship on it.
yes, but I don't know whether that. There have been occasions where there's been a clash, and maybe the home teams had to wear the away shirt. But that was nothing to do with colours.
No.
This was to do with the fact that was at the time where you just couldn't have an advertising on the shirt. How things have changed. We talked about the gambling issue.
Yeah.
That's going to change now for next season. There can't be the main.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll find other ways, but I think that's a step in the right direction. As I said before, I'm not anti people having a bet, not at all. But I just think it's a little bit in your face for the younger generation.
Yep. Brilliant. And don't forget, you can read Martin's letters, as I said, on substack.com, and that's under The Joy of Football as well. Go on there. Okay, last segment, Voice of Passion.
Voice of Passion.
To be followed, of course, by the Voice of Reason from Martin. There's been a lot of debate about this over the last couple of weeks, and I think we ought to put our oar in this. Normally, we look for original stuff. Someone posted the stats for the top 10 completed passes this season so far, and the 2014-15 season. This, of course, would be just Premier League games. So I'll start with the 2014-15 season. This was the top 10 completed passes. First, Cesc Fabregas. Second, Yaya Toure. Third, Santi Cazorla. Fourth, Nemanja Matic, all midfielders. Fifth, Eden Hazard, winger. Sixth, Jordan Henderson. Seventh, Steven Nzonzi, who I think would have been playing for Stoke at the time. Eighth, David Silva. Ninth, Gareth Barry, all midfielders. 10th, Christian Eriksen, I think we could call a wide midfielder. He played off the left for Tottenham.
Well, no, he played all over midfield, really, and he also played occasionally up front, but he certainly wasn't a defensive.
No. The top 10 so far this season in the Premier League. First, Virgil van Dijk. Second, Lewis Dunk. Third, Trevor Chalobah. Fourth, Joachim Andersen, all centre-backs. Fifth, Elliot Anderson, midfielder. Sixth, Jan Paul van Heck, centre-back. Seventh, Declan Rice, midfielder. Eighth, Eric Conson. Ninth, Marcus Senesi. 10th, William Saliba, all centre-backs. This is the danger of the Premier League boring the flipping brain cells out of us by passing the ball 10 yards in front of the penalty.
It's the danger of data as well, because I can tell you, whatever those centre-backs might say, they are well aware not only of the number of passes, but the percentage of accuracy of their passes. They're passing to each other in some cases. And that data is drivel. I mean, I do think we've got a danger of paralysis from analysis. It's a cliche now, isn't it? But I do think by covering everything, you give people targets.
But
really.
it is the way that football has changed, and it is a big danger that it is boring the pants off people. I want to give you two things. Ruud Gullit on Ziggo Sport Channel in the Netherlands. This is a translation of what he said. The great Ruud Gullit. I've decided to stop watching football. I no longer take any pleasure in our sport. I watched Arsenal against Chelsea. What an absolutely, utterly poor match. I see players trying to force corners, trying to force throw-ins, and I see ball boys ready to hand towels to the players. Football has become absolutely horrible. I hope this isn't the path we are taking. I want players capable of taking on defenders in duels, someone like Lamine Yamal. I'm missing the joy. I no longer take any pleasure in football. Where are the players who dribble? Where are the players with balls? Ruud Gullit was always on balls. He was on top of that. But this is this is something that I think a lot of supporters talk about and well, I don't tear my hair out, but tear their hair out about when the defenders pass the ball to each other. I want to give you one of my statistics, which I have started keeping only in the last few years. The number of goals scored and conceded by losing the ball or winning in your own half, or getting the ball, winning the ball, or being gifted the ball in the opposition half. And so far this season, in all competitions, my Chelsea have scored 15 goals from either winning the ball or being gifted the ball in the opposition half, and have conceded 11 by giving it away in their own half. 10 years ago, the biggest crime in football was to give the ball away in your own half. Absolutely out of the question. Now it's all part of the understanding that a coach has in trying to build from the back.
No, I mean, the pressing has made it difficult for teams. I mean, that goes back to Guardiola with Barcelona. If you lose the ball, you've got 6 seconds to go and get it again.
Yeah, but
what's wrong with that?
This is brilliant for a team that has 70% possession. But it's interesting that as Manchester City fall with their new setup to somewhere around 60% possession, it's becoming harder to do. And the football is becoming not so exalting. And it'll be very interesting to see how he develops that with less possession. But it's great when it's 70% possession. It's not the same when it's 60, because you're running around and getting knackered all the time. Every time a manager now, a head coach, praises the opposition, the word pressing is brought into it. Never the quality of play. It's always...
No, but the quality of play is there. The problem is it's cancelled out because everybody knows everything about the team they're playing against. That's why it's been such a joy for a Port Vale, who probably aren't in the data system as much as a Premier League team, have made such progress in the FA Cup. And I'm not going to mention Southampton in bracket because they're probably well data-driven as a former Premier League team. But the more you know, the harder it is to come up with something that will take the opposition by surprise. Everybody knows everything about every player.
Not if your best players are given freedom.
They're given freedom. How can you be given freedom if the opposition doesn't allow you to have freedom? Oh, well, let's look at João Pedro not playing right up front. Well, he'll wander here or there. Right, well, this is what we do when João Pedro does that. We were out to stop him doing that. So everything that you say is good going forward is a counterpunch from the team that's trying to stop them doing it. That's always been the case.
Yeah, but the issue now is that the coaches have philosophies that restrict the players from doing certain things and make them do certain things in order to play the game. And what we now have, as I've been dubious for a long time, I've understood it, I get it, why you play a wide player on his wrong foot. Because if you've only got one forward, you need to play football to get the ball into the box. You can't go running down the wing and just crossing it. I get all that. But if you've got fullbacks going infield as well and being inverted fullbacks, everyone's going infield. The pitch is getting smaller because you got no one wide. If you leave one person wide, the winger wide, he's always going to have to turn in when he gets the ball because it's his stronger foot. B, the fullback's always going to make him turn in because everybody's in there. And C, your talented players don't have the space that they had previously because there's too many bloody fullbacks and bloody wingers in there with them.
They're not talented players anymore. They're talented coached players. They're not allowed to play with free. They've come through. We've got a generation now who've come through from 5, 7 years old to be in the first team at 18, 19, who have been coached and coached and coached. They've not played football in the playground as... probably not even allowed to do it at school because they are now with Chelsea or they're now with a Premier League team.
I agree.
I'm not having a go at Chelsea particularly, I promise you. But the truth is, that is how you learn to play football now. It's programmed football. It's not off-the-cuff football. It's not dangerous football, not risky football, because the need to win overtakes the need to entertain. It is a sport. I know I'm in a minority in this because I've been taken to task before. It is a sport where you're in it to win it. If you can entertain as well, that's brilliant. But you can be the most entertaining team in the and get 15 points and then get relegated and the manager loses his job, the players get moved on somewhere else. It's been fun to watch, but if you've got no accountability for that club, then you don't care. You just think, oh, that's nice to watch them.
But there's no accountability now for defenders passing the ball backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards.
Because there's nowhere to give the ball. I watched your team at Wrexham, and Liam Delap eventually had to come back and get the ball on the halfway line, and he set up a goal by doing it because he's standing up there. People aren't passing the ball. He's been very well marked because everyone knows his strength, and then he's been data driven by the opposition. They know how to deal with him, and it's very hard to get the better of.
I'm seeing less and less movement from the front players, and I'm not talking about my club. I'm talking about throughout the Premier League. I'm seeing less and less movement from the front players because the defenders get the ball and just pass. And if they make a move, funny enough, the team that does it best in passing out of defence is Brighton, who have long had a series of methods of getting the ball quickly out of defence and forward through doing it. But God help Brighton when Lewis Dunk stops playing, because he's the master.
Oh, he's very good. He's a very good passer of the ball as well.
Yeah,
having been typecast as a big lump, he's anything but that. Well, he's big, but he's not a lump. He's a very talented
he's
player.
Lewis Dunk, not Lewis Lump.
Yeah, exactly. And I once had a conversation with him about how whether it was difficult to move towards the kind of player he is now. And he said, that's the kind of player I always wanted to be, but I was discouraged before. So, you know...
But I'm saying they've done it well in the past, Brighton, but they overdo it now. And it's become a disease of the Premier League. And it seems to me that the thing that's been lost is intensity. The thing that's been lost is one touch, two touch, one touch,
you
two
can't
touch.
do anything more than intense than press. You can't do anything more than that.
Well, no, but then you've got to go over it. But that's what doesn't happen.
It does happen. I mean, Wrexham pick their moments.
Oh, Wrexham, but they're a championship team.
Yeah, but are you saying then you should watch the Championship, not the Premier League?
Probably.
I don't think you've watched enough Championship football then. I bet you've watched none, to be honest with you, except you've played Charlton, you've played Hull, you destroyed them. Wrexham you didn't destroy. I promise you, football is an ever-changing game, full of fascinating plots and subplots. It is not being cursed. And I know Rude very well, and I love him to bits. But it's not being. He's watching the wrong games. He's watching the big games of always. The worst game probably I've ever commentated on big game. Chelsea v Man United, 2007 FA Cup final. It was absolutely dire, and
Wasn't that good?
No, and because what was at stake? There's so much at stake. Not just points, jobs, livelihoods. Maybe I do subscribe to the view that Premier League is full of, it's overpopulated with employees who don't play football, who sit on computers, and that to me doesn't help. But imagination is perhaps what we're calling for, and it is there. It is there, but it's very, very hard to express it because those imaginative players who want to, Cherky and Foden at Man City, for example, who they have great games, and then the games where you don't see them, because that's the way the job is to stop the best players. Always has been. Yeah. Who's their best player? When you're growing up and playing school football, who's their best player? And I had the day when Luke Shaw turned up when I was coaching at the primary school up the road here. Best player, the whole district knew he was the best player. What are we going to do? I'll put somebody on him. A kid who's played 300 games in the National League South since then, so he wasn't the worst footballer. But that's what you did. And that's how you have to try and, the word I hate, which is now a new code, solutions. One, we have to find solutions, and two, we suffer. I mean, goodness me. Go on, if you want to know what's real suffering, put on the news. It's a terrible use of a word.
But I suffer watching centre-backs pass to each other slowly, watching goalkeepers stand on the ball because there's no movement ahead of them. If you want to break this deadlock, play quickly from the back.
Well, you'll have to put in a law, like you've got to take a throw in after 5 seconds now, and you've got to do a substitution after 30 seconds. It's like that game when you play golf, you've got to hit the shot and run to the next shot and play like that. That's what they're trying. They're trying to do that. I don't think they're going about it the right way.
No.
But I do respect the effort that the lawmakers are trying to do it. And wasting time is, well, if you want to waste time, the goalkeeper, put your foot on the ball and then wait for somebody to run from the halfway line to tokenly press you. That will take 20 seconds. That's an easy way of wasting time. You don't have to be obvious about it. That's the opposition letting you waste time. So let's not... I understand the noise. That's another word that we all have to live with. The noise. Too much noise around this. Maybe too much noise around our podcast. Like, goodness knows, it'd be nice to have some noise around it, actually, to be honest. But it's ever changing. That's the fascination of it. You know, watch some of those old games. Now YouTube is magnificent for watching. Watch it on television on ITV4. I think you can watch the Big Match Revisited. Have a look at some of those games and see what you think in terms of and that those were only highlights, of course, so you don't get some of the other bits. But the fans don't seem to be objecting. If the fans don't want to see that, then they should be hurrying up their team. You're a fan, hurry up your team.
Oh God, it's all we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
Well,
make your feelings known but in the traditional manner inside a football stadium.
I do it with a little more colourful language.
But no, yeah, of course you've got a point. It's a talking point, but I don't think it's as bad. And the only fear of the set pieces for me is, can I see for sure who got the final touch? Because that is still a part of the, if there is any art in commentating, that is part of it.
This is the joy of football, and one of the joys of football is talking about it.
It is.
And even the negatives about it. So stay off social media, or if you want to go on it, follow the joy of football. Martin?
No, if you are on it, which is most of you, follow the joy of football, please. Thanks for having us in your lives, and we go again. Whether it's a win, loss, or a draw today, you can make up your mind about that. But whatever happens, we go again.
Right.